Hi everyone, podcast time. I was recently interviewed by Bernie Maopolski from Fan of History, and we had a great time talking about some numismatic news. In today's episode, we talk about a rare Egyptian gold coin found in a dig in Israel, so very far away from home. I highly recommend you all go and listen to the other episodes of Fan of History. I'll be leaving a link to their podcast and their social media in the video description. It was lots of fun talking with Bernie, and we will be recording more podcasts in the future. So give him a follow, as he deserves your support. All right, let's get to it.
All right, here I go. Well, hello, everyone. I like to say the future's a mystery, but what's new in history? So I'm here. This is a dream come true. First time we're going to introduce to the Fan of History, what's new in history people, Leo from Classic Numismatics. Did I say numismatics right?
Numismatics. Right.
See, I'm the worst. Numismatics. I said it right before when we were practicing. I'm like my daughter Gracie. We can't pronounce anything right. But this is and I just listened to our old episode from when I recorded a long time ago about coins. And I said, one of these days I'm going to meet this guy. I'm going to get him on the show. And we have. So he has a great YouTube channel. So today we're going to talk about, so I'm going to introduce Leo. We're going to talk about him and why he's such an expert. And then I'm going to talk about a brand new article from Popular Mechanics from Emma Fredrickson. This was published on August 26, 2025, so it's fresh. Recent discovery, a 2,200-year-old gold coin of Queen Bernice II was found in Jerusalem. And we're going to dig into that. But first, I'd like to introduce Leo. Hello, Leo. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor.
Yeah. And it's funny because I met Dean, who's also a coin person, and he actually knew Leo, which was great, and that's how I got introduced. And one of my favorite listeners, who's my girlfriend Christy, said, "Oh, I guess you're going to tell us all about Leo when you talk to him." And I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. I'm sure that people will be interested. So Leo lives in Spain, which is, if you guys have been listening to me, know that I love Spain and I plan to move there. But you weren't from Spain. So how did you end up in Spain, if you don't mind me asking?
Oof, long story. I'm originally from Brazil, and then I went on exchange to Canada, came back to Brazil, realized I wanted to see the world. So then I went to Portugal, went to masters in Portugal, and went to the UK, yada yada, and here I am in Spain. And
amazing.
Then it's been a long back and forth, but here I am, and Spain is pretty awesome. So probably I'm going to stay over here.
Nice. Well, once I move there, we'll all be in the same time zone. I'll have a couple of Fan of History. We have two Fan of History recurring guests, both living in Spain. We have Gil, and now we have Leo. And I do recommend Leo's channel, which I'll obviously put in the links. It's amazing. I've used it a lot to help me. And so, like Dean told us how he got into ancient coins. How does your love of ancient coins start?
Well, when I was young, I just liked coins overall. I just collected some loose change that we had back home. But I was also like a huge history buff for all of my life. And the discovery of ancient coins was actually quite funny. I was playing Rome Total War.
Okay.
And just this random curiosity popped on my head, because there's like the little resource, right? You have X talents to spend every turn and stuff like that. And the question just popped on my head, like, can you actually buy that stuff? And I just randomly went on Google, like ancient coins sale, Roman coin sale, something like that. Thinking it would cost a fortune. I would just close the browser and go back to my video game. And it turns out it was fairly affordable. So I completely ignored all of the advice that I typically give people when they're starting out. I just bought the first thing that I saw that was reasonably affordable without any regards if I was actually paying a good deal for it or not. But it was real, it was ancient, it was awesome. I fell in love with it. I started reading more about it. And here we are. That was in like 2018. So here we are, like 7 years later, and I'm making this my job. So that's
amazing.
It's been cool.
Well, okay, the question is, what was this? What was the first coin?
It was a crappy little phallus from Constantius II, which I still have, which has pieces of its patina falling off. It's like a €5 coin or something like this. And yeah, I was just poking it, seeing like the mint mark, the designs, explored this coin, and then another one came, and then another one came, and then a book came, and here we are.
Wow. So you have a pretty good collection yourself of coins.
Yes. I absolutely love it. I'm constantly adding pieces to the collection. And yeah, it's a lovely passion that I will probably have in many years.
Do you consider it an investment or just something you're going to keep forever? Give to your grandkids?
It can be a good investment, especially, I mean, it's the best advice I can give to someone who wants to make money with coins is to actually be a good numismatist. Actually, the part of leaving it to your children, I typically recommend that people they sell their coins before getting too old or passing it on to their children, because only you really know how much your coins are worth, the minutiae of like how much you paid for this one, how should you sell this one. It's typically a headache you leave to your family. There's a high likelihood that some scummy dealer is going to offer a fraction of the value, and you don't want your family to lose on some potential windfall. So generally, I recommend that once you grow a little bit older and you realize, well, I'm getting older, I don't have enough time to appreciate the coins and enjoy them, just sell them, send them to another collector who's going to enjoy them, who's going to cherish them. And with the capital, just, I don't know, pay some nice vacations to your family or something like this.
Yeah. There's a couple other things you could do. You could bury them with yourself and really confuse archaeologists, or in the same way, just drop them somewhere. A whole bunch of random coins.
I totally plan on being buried with a couple of cheap denarii on top of my eyes. And,
yes.
And then some archaeologists in the future, in like 500 years, they're like, what on earth is a random Roman being buried in this random Catholic graveyard in the middle of Spain? What is going on here?
See, maybe you should be polite and like have a little thing written. Gil and I have the thing where we want to start a business where we, engrave ancient text in metal, so you can be buried with yourself. So if civilization collapses, you'll have a Rosetta Stone of some sort. So, but you could tease the archaeologists too if you want. I think it's great.
Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna ask them to put a little, like a leather plate or something under my, like at the bottom, under my skeleton. So they first find the coin, they go like, what is going on here? And then when they find the plate, there's going to be a little inscription there like, oh, I gotcha. You thought you found the discovery of the century, but no, that's just a history buff you found here.
Amazing. Well, that's a good segue, because maybe that 500 years from now, some other person, or hey, maybe I'll be like AI Bernie or whatever, and they'll find it, and then we'll have a what's new in history on this, and it'll be such a mystery, and it'll be solved. So that's amazing.
Well, with the way AI is advancing, there's going to be like an AI Leo and an AI Bernie giving people advice on ancient coins in like 1,000 years from now. I don't know.
Amazing. Well, I better brush up my web presence so that I have a good historical credibility at the end. Like this particular person. So I just found this article recently, and it's a couple hundred years ahead in our timeline for Fan of History. So that's all. I like to keep the ancient stuff, but not. We could have a spoiler. We always say in Fan of History we don't want to have a spoiler. But these coins are from, or this queen is from around 241 BC. So Fan of History won't be on that until I'm probably ready to sell my ancient coin collection. Let's put it that way. The story it goes, it's, sorry. The article, like I said, is a 2,200-year-old gold coin of Queen Berenice II was found in Jerusalem. So I'm going to tell you what's interesting about this. They unearthed this rare coin at the City of David National Park in Jerusalem, and it depicts her on it wearing a veil and a necklace and a cornucopia with Greek inscriptions and stuff. Of course, I'll link the article in the show notes, but some of the significance of this is there's only about 20 of these coins are known globally, and we'll come back to Leo on that, because that must be quite a rare coin. And the other deal about this, it's the first one ever discovered in a proper archaeological context outside of Egypt, which means that she may have ruled autonomously, they say, not just as a consort. She's got quite a history, this person. I'm going to try to go through some of it with you. But I find this period, I don't know about you, but I find this period in history like very chaotic. It's like right after Alexander the Great.
Oh, it is. Alexander all of a sudden decided to die.
Yeah.
There was this crazy struggle for who was going to get his territories. You have all of these kingdoms that form up after this initial division. And what do you do when you carve up your own kingdom? You try to make it bigger. So they immediately went to war. They went to war for centuries. That's probably one of the reasons that when the Romans came, they were able to just swoop in, because all of these kingdoms were so weakened by their squabbles. And Egypt and the Seleucids, which were probably the two most important of these kingdoms, they had non-stop fighting for centuries, and they fought their main battle lines were around the area where this coin was found. So this area of like modern day Jerusalem, Syria. This area was pretty much a border area going back and forth between these two kingdoms, as one took the other upper hand, then the other one. So it was a very transited area. There were armies going back and forth. And the primary reason in the ancient world when coins would be issued, especially precious metal coins, would be to pay for armies. So whenever you see precious metal coins, especially gold stuff, like this particular coin, there is very likely a connection to the army or to some important merchants. Something was going on there, and that's what we're going to try to figure out.
Right. So if you expand on that, so basically when you say like a precious metal coin, a coin of gold wouldn't be something that a common person would normally have. Like you wouldn't go to the store and buy something with a gold coin. That would be for mercenaries or major trade type of a transaction.
Yeah, exactly. Egypt is a bit of an anomaly numismatically because throughout the Mediterranean, silver was much more prevalent than gold, with the exception of Egypt. Egypt had access to gold mines. It had access to Africa through trade networks, so they had more access to gold. So Egypt, Ptolemaic Egypt in particular, they had lots of gold coins in their regular denominational system, in their economic system. So they issued a whole lot of gold coins. But as you mentioned, gold was always very valuable. So we're not talking about a small amount of money. It turns out this particular coin it's a rather tiny coin. It's like a quarter of the drachma. It's like 2 grams of gold. It fits on top of your finger. And it's equivalent in silver. It was equivalent to the silver tetradrachma, which was like a big, important coin of 17 grams of silver. Okay. So the tetradrachma was probably one of the most popular coins used to pay salaries for important merchants. It was the coin of commerce. So the fact this coin was found in this area at this time when there was a lot of conflict between these two kingdoms makes me theorize we're talking about a coin used to pay salaries, to pay the wages of a mercenary, to pay the wages of maybe the army, maybe an important officer, because typically officers were paid with gold and regular troops were paid with silver. So we'll never know for sure, but it looks like, considering the time when this was issued and the area, that this was the payment of some sort of soldier or officer or someone like that.
Right. That's great. That's interesting. And it's also what's interesting, I guess, about this find too is that it was found in the said archaeological context of what you just talked about, because something like a coin, we know, could be found in China, and it could be 200 years later that the coin was made, that it's found so far away. But this particular find is in an archaeological context of around the time of the coin. And it's, I think, the first one ever found outside of Egypt. This is a pretty rare coin, I guess it said, right?
Yes. I mean, all gold coins, all ancient gold coins have a pretty reasonable rarity. Egyptian Ptolemaic gold is not necessarily like super rare, but these small fractions, it's kind of funny because the small fractions, they tend to be rarer than the larger coins because these were probably issued as like a very special small issue meant for that particular military campaign. So it looks like there were like 20 other coins found because back then, before the time of like restrictions in like the trade of antiquities and things like that, the other 19 examples were probably ended up in the numismatic market. But yeah, this coin it's rare mostly because it was probably connected to that particular issue. It was the only time in history, so to speak, that particular kind of coin was issued. So yeah, that's the reason that it is rare. It's not necessarily that all gold coins are rare.
Right. And this one, it's got the queen on it, which they think maybe, the queen was more powerful necessarily than just a queen consort. And you were saying then that maybe they just minted this coin just for the purpose of whatever campaign or whatever they were doing. Maybe it wasn't as massively produced. It was for this particular use.
Yeah, it was probably for this particular use. Queens were very often shown in Egyptian gold coins as well, because as coins were meant to, these big gold coins were meant to like important merchants, the troops, as I said, like very important people. The idea of the queen as well, it was very important. Was it because she held some executive power? It could have been. It could not have been, but the main point here was that the queen was also very important for the political alliances and the political schemes of this wider Hellenistic sphere. So the point was mostly to pass across the message that there was a queen of Egypt, there was an important queen, there was a lineage of the Ptolemies that was going to continue with this queen. It's actually on the reverse, the legends, it proclaims the name of the queen. It's like, Berenike, they say Berenike Basilissa, of Queen Berenike, rather than just a random proclamation of Ptolemy as the king. So they really wanted to show that there was a queen. The purpose of why was there a queen of coinage, if she was, as I said, like if she had some executive power or not, we're not really sure if that's what was the answer for that, but that was the important point, to show there was a queen, to show there was a continuation to the lineage of Ptolemy.
Amazing. That's so awesome. That's how they use the coin as a propaganda piece and all. It's so about her, why they did that. She has a kind of an interesting life, so thanks for helping me set that up, because I was thinking, how am I going to talk about her a little bit? She is like a Hollywood movie. She was, she was born around 267. The archaeologists date this coin around 241, around that time. So her interesting story is that she was supposed... So she's from... I'm not going to pronounce it right, of course, but it's Cyrenaica. It's like Serene. That was... it was... do you know how to pronounce that better than me?
Well, I guess the Greek way would be like Kyrenaika, but yes. Cyrene, yeah.
Cyrene is probably how I've pronounced it to our listeners many times. So that's like Libya. Actually, where she's from is now, there was a town named after her, Berenike, and that's now Benghazi. So that's the area there. And that was a Greek colonies. And there was all this drama about who she was going to marry. So her mother set her up to marry, she was supposed to marry a Ptolemy and become, the queen in Egypt. Her mother was going to marry her off to this guy named Demetrius the Fair. He was from Macedonia. He was a Macedonian prince. But she wasn't real happy on the idea. So when he came to the city to meet her and marry her and stuff, his people, they took over the city. And then he was caught in bed, apparently, with her mother.
Oh,
so Berenike's mother was the one who set this up, but maybe they were lovers of some sort. Berenike was probably pretty young, so he caught them in bed. So then she had him assassinated, and then she married the one who she wanted to marry. And she has, there's probably podcast episodes we could do forever on her with all the drama. And like I say, I find this period of history quite confusing, and there's so many ins and outs and intrigue, because in the end, she was probably poisoned and most of her children were killed. So that was kind of the crazy life of her. But her coin, of course, lives on. It was found here in Jerusalem.
Yeah, there's the whole thing with Greek queens is really interesting, because despite the very high likelihood that they did not ever hold executive power, the fact that the Greeks were a relatively small population in numbers, but they ruled over such a vast territory and over so many different peoples. But the Greeks themselves, they were sort of like an elite that ruled over populations. So, for example, the Ptolemies, the native Greeks who lived in Egypt, they were a small population right next to a whole bunch of natives, and the same applied to the Seleucids and other kingdoms. So the point that you had such small populations meant you had very few of these noble women to sort of like be married to one another and to make these alliances. So although they didn't have executive power, they were highly influential. And this back and forth of who's going to marry who's going to marry who's going to make alliances with that kingdom or that other kingdom. And when something like this happens, that backstabbing, it's not just a typical HBO thing of like backstabbing. It's very impactful to these small elites, and this is going to have huge repercussions on the future of that kingdom and that elite. So that is why you have lots of examples of this palace drama throughout the Hellenistic period, and a lot of them have to do with these very influential queens who plot against that king or that other king and who's going to marry who. And really, if HBO wanted to make a series on like the Seleucids and the Ptolemies and all of that backstabbing, it would make such incredible series. But unfortunately, I think we don't have enough history buffs in the larger audience for that. But these would be incredible series.
I'm pretty sure basically Game of Thrones just took all that stuff and boiled it down into a magical story, of Dungeons and Dragons, basically. But not too many Dungeons and Dragons. Exactly.
The level of backstabbing, it's pretty much par on par.
Yes, exactly. And this particular area, like we said, I think becomes like crazy with the backstabbing and the poisoning. Everybody's poisoning everybody at this time. So, yeah, she definitely had a very interesting life. It was a short life, too, because she didn't really live that long. But had a lot going on, and she has her own coin, and she lives forever now, doesn't she?
Yeah, I guess that's one of the quickest ways into immortality.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I will, like I said, that's a quick little what's new in history. I wanted to introduce our new, hopefully recurring guest, because soon we're going to record an episode on, and you'll hear when we get to it, on coins in the 500 area, because we're at the 500 BC time in the regular podcast. So we're going to discuss that, Leo and I, at some later date. And now you'll know something about him, and we know something about who I pronounce wrong, of course, but now I know it right, Queen Berenice. Oh, and there's also a constellation named after her. Did you know that?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, that's interesting. Her husband was leaving, and so she cut off to save somebody, one of these drama situations. I don't have it all in front of me right now, but she cut off all her hair, and she put it in a temple, and then the hair disappeared. So the priest said that it was now a constellation, and to this day, it is still a constellation in the sky called Coma Berenices. I would say that's how that's pronounced.
Yeah, the hair of Berenice.
And amazing. So, yeah, thanks, Leo. I appreciate it. I don't know, do you want to add anything else about this or about yourself? Like I said, I'm going to put in the show notes links to your YouTube channel. You don't have a podcast right now, right? Just a YouTube channel?
No, just the YouTube channel. And I'll
As
be
if just.
super happy, and I'll be super happy to be a recurrent guest in your podcast.
Oh, that's amazing. And yeah, guys, listen, check out the channel. When I did my episode on First Time on Coins, I watched so many of his videos, and I've been watching them again. You have all these coins you could see, and It's amazing, just amazing. Thank you so much for this episode with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, cheers. See you again.